Hello, everyone. My name is Katy with Greenland Quilter. Welcome, welcome. Um, my guest has not shown up, so I'm not sure where she is. Her name is Brenda from Conquering Mount Scrapmore, but I haven't heard from her today, and so far nothing. So I'm not sure. Ah, here she is. Hello, Brenda. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Hi, Katie. How's it going? Oh my God. The drama here trying to get onto this link. Sorry about this. I've never done live.
Oh,
So I guess I'm doing live.
you should have just been able to click on it and it bring you to Zoom.
No, we had a bad link.
Huh?
Yeah, we had a bad link.
Oh,
So
so you got the email I sent?
yeah, we did. But the
Okay.
link, the first one had a bad link, so it was like, well, this isn't working out good. Oh
It's
well.
okay. As long as you're here and we figured it out.
Yes. And we're doing live streaming right now, right?
Yes, we are.
Ah, okay. Yes, I've never done any live streaming
So this
ever.
is your first time then, huh?
Yeah, it's well, I got a funny story to tell you about being on Zoom and being live. Right? So a bunch of us had gathered on Zoom and we were talking and we were having a quilt meeting and talking and sewing and just having a great time. And when I was wrapping the meeting up because I was hosting, I hit the close meeting for all, and I hit the button, and I had one more little pile of stuff to cut, and I took my rotary cutter and I sliced right into my finger, and ended up with 9 stitches and a concussion because I hit the floor.
Oh no. Oh my gosh.
So it's in the middle of COVID. Of course, they take you in the Edmonton metropolitan area. They're taking you to the hospital that will provide you service the quickest, which for me at that time was St. Albert. I live 4 blocks from the Misericordia Hospital, and my husband had to call an ambulance. So it was like, so I ended up at St. Albert with, and they wouldn't talk. They didn't want to talk about stitching up my finger. They wanted to talk about what was going on with my head.
Oh no, that's great.
Yeah, so I've been really quite shy with being on live because, I all it took was I'm not kid you not, 5 seconds earlier. If I'd have made that cut 5 seconds earlier, I would have cut my finger online in front of all those people.
That would have been very drastic. So, I can't
Yeah,
even imagine.
so I kind of shy about being I guess. But I should probably get over that because there's a big advantage about being on live too. So
Yep.
that's
So, everyone, let's welcome Brenda from Conquering Mount Scrapmore. We've been waiting a while to get with her, but I'm finally with her. So, welcome, welcome. So, Brenda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your channel, and then I will start asking some questions, and
oh
we can
okay.
go in between the conversation.
Well, I had I was being babysat by a neighbor, and she was making a bow tie block, and I was by the old-fashioned way, with the what is it, the 5-sided piece and the square in the middle, that method. She was hand quilting it, and I was just fascinated with her watching that. And I was always an underfoot in my mom and grandma's sewing room. I was just a pain in the butt. I'm sure they were just get out, get out, get out. And so I was always in there. Well, the neighbor lady who babysat me, she had made an extra bow tie block for her quilt. So she
Right.
gave it to me for my doll. So she said, here, you can quilt this for your doll. And it'll be lovely. So I learned how to hand quilt before I actually learned how to hand piece. And mom was not impressed, but oh well. And what happened was, it was just one of those moments where they thought, the first time she pokes herself with a needle, that she'll be gone, she'll be out of here. Like I was either 5 or 6. I bled all over that quilt, determined to quilt it, determined to get it done, determined to bind it, determined to do everything and make it for my doll. And I did manage to do it, but it was one of those like, oh, good grief. You know?
Oh, wow.
So yes, and I was kind of hooked ever since. And then mom just started giving me her scraps. She was just, you know, because I was making Barbie clothes and sometimes I'd make little quilts for them or, you know, whatever. It was just always constantly doing something as a kid. So, but yeah, that's pretty much how I got started into quilting. You know, just it was fascinated by that slow stitching that Mrs. Hess was doing as she was putting those pieces together. And they were using Fortrell, right? Because the women then, they used whatever they had. They didn't have the luxury of all the beautiful fabric we have now. So,
That is very true.
yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll be asking questions. Would you like to share with everybody what you're going to sew while you're answering questions?
I'm making crumb blocks.
Okay, let me spotlight you so I can so you can show them what you currently have started.
Okay, so crumb blocks are one of those things you have to keep applying a little bit of birth control to your crumbs, otherwise they take over. So I'm just making little crumb blocks. I'm putting them together and I'm kind of trimming them up and kind of keeping them squarish so that I can make other things out of them. And I will be doing a series on my YouTube channel about crumb carnage, right? So by color and showing you different what methods that you can use to clean out your crumb bins. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So right now I'm working on green and teal because I put them together. But yeah, I've made some pretty cool twin size quilts already. And I have lots of crumb blocks that I've already finished. So it'll be fun. But Kathy, what are you working on?
I thought I would do some string blocks.
You're going to do string blocks? Okay.
Yes, I'm using fused. What do you call this?
Interfacing, it looks like.
Interface. Yeah, it's interfacing. It's just regular interfacing, and I'm just gonna sew strips on it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll be working on.
There's so many ways of making quilt blocks. Isn't that amazing?
I know, right?
Oh,
it's always
yeah.
interesting what people come up with. Okay, so let's see. We have people in the channel, so I'm going to go say hello to them. So far, hello, Robin. Hi, is either Jeanne or Jeannie? I'm not sure which is her pronunciation for her name. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Andrea. Hello, Gladys. Hello, Mona. Welcome, welcome. Hello, so Terry. Welcome, welcome. All right. Everybody say hello to Brenda. She's here to share her love of making scrappy blocks.
Hello, everyone. There's a couple of those names I recognize. That's pretty cool.
Andrea wants to know, have you ever used fabric softener sheets for a foundation for your crumb blocks?
Who, me or you?
You.
No. And you know why? I'm allergic to fabric softener.
That would be a good reason to use it.
Yeah, that would be a very bad thing for me to use, which is kind of funny, I guess, but.
Okay, so here's my first question. Who influenced you to sew? Who was your influencer?
Oh my goodness. Well, first off, you know, being around both grandmothers sewed and quilted, and my mother sewed and quilted, and seemed everybody because I grew up in a rural community, right? So it seemed everybody I knew had some kind of sewing, quilting. They did something along those lines, right? And it wasn't until I was out on my own, you know, living, and we used to watch Kay Woods and Eleanor Burns. Those were the first, you know, the queens of quilting that I remember watching. And it was always, they were always putting together such beautiful quilts. I thought they were beautiful. And, you know, I'm just working with scraps. So sometimes I would try and, you know, follow along and make a block or two or whatever. And you know, and after a while you collect all these blocks and you're like, well, we'll just put them into a quilt, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, it was kind of, that's where I started. And you know, and then after a while you start, okay, let's try, you know, I like Pat Sloan is, I think, always missed on the list of people that are, you know, really good influencers on quilting.
Yeah.
She not only does she design her own fabric, she writes pattern books, and she tries to tell everybody about everybody else's thing that they're doing too, right? Because she was on she had a radio program for years. She was like the voice of quilting, right? So it was kind of like you want to follow this one or that one or you know whatever. I mean, it was she was always there, you know, kind of introducing people to her audience, right? To go find out. So that probably, I mean, her, you know, that she recognized very early on there's room for all of the voices. We all have different voices, and there's room for all of us on YouTube, right? Or you know, like any platform we choose, there's always this room for all of us, right? Because there's a bunch of different ways on doing things, right? And the way we look at things, the way we put color together, and you know, all of those really interesting things, right? So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's been a big learning experience. I haven't watched a whole whack of YouTube channels for years. And you know, quite frankly, there are some very talented people that on here. And you know, and just kudos for them, you know.
Yep. I'm
I,
always amazed at all the different quilts that there's so much talent.
yeah, very
Well,
much so.
I was watching one of your videos, I think yesterday, and you had done a scrap quilt. Oh my gosh, that thing's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
It had all those different blocks in it. It was really cool looking.
Well, we try and do a lot of, and now I'm doing more charity quilts because my family and friends are all quilted. They have lots of quilts in their stash already, so they're kind of like quilted out. They
Yeah.
they don't have room for all these quilts, so that's okay.
Okay, so when did you begin to piece quilts, and how old were you when you finished your first one?
Oh.
Or how long ago was it when you finished your first one? You don't have to say your age if you don't want to. Just saying.
Okay, I started quilting at 5 or 6, and that was a doll quilt, right? So I did finish the
Oh,
doll
really
quilt.
young, huh?
So I was really young when I started. And then after that, I would do other, you know, sewing, you know, so I always had something on the go. That's actually a really hard question because I don't remember. I remember making a quilt for one of the girls I went to school with who was having a baby. I
Mm-hmm.
remember doing that for her, but you know, it was just kind of that was kind of more, well, nobody wanted to talk about that kind of thing then either. So it was like, guys, really? But yeah, yeah, I quite enjoyed sewing. So I mean, whenever I had the opportunity to do that, I would. So I guess probably how in my teens I was finishing quilts, you know, so I guess that's kind of the best estimate I can give. I never thought about it before.
Um, do you have a favorite style of fabric that you like?
Oh, there are so many lovely people creating fabric right now. Um, I do love Libs Elliott's line, her new line, and that she's a more considered a modern quilter. Yet you know, yes, there's you know the Tulip Pinks and the K Facets and all the rest of them out there. But you know, Robert Kaufman too, I just find very lovely to work with. And you know, and enjoy working with his stuff very much. Um, I get a lot of scrap donations, so I have to kind of be a little more open to a lot of different fabrics.
Yeah, I
So,
get that. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
because if you're getting lots of, like I don't get a lot of sets unless I buy them, like those stacks of fat quarters.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I mean, and I mean occasionally I'll get some donated to me, but I mean most of the time it's, I'm working with whatever. I do love Lori Holt. Lori Holt, Tula Pink, and Kay Fassett, they're really smart. The fabric that Kay Fassett came out with 10 years ago will go with the fabric that he creates today.
Yep.
Because he's working within that color palette range. I mean, so is Lori Holt. I mean, Pat Sloan has done that too, where her colors, where she's working with certain colors, and they're just glorious together. And you can take one fabric from years ago and put it in, and it will look good beside it, right? Another one I really like is Brigitte from Zen Chic. I love her stuff too. I just find her stuff just is so lovely and just fresh. There's nobody that designs like fabric like her. And and I'm not sure if she's part of the very early modern quilting, right? I mean, her name was there, not so much now, and I'm kind of wondering why, but because her stuff is just beautiful if you like modern looking fabrics, right?
Yep. Um, do you have a favorite pattern designer?
Oh. Okay. I tell you the truth. I go through the Barbara Brackman dictionary and I picked up another book on a recommendation that talks about other quilt blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of do like I look at those blocks for inspiration. And then I start playing around with, designing and all the rest of that stuff. But basically it's that Barbara Bachman. Here, I'll just grab the other books. Hang on. I'm not far.
It's okay.
So now this one is a godsend. This Barbara Bachman book is absolute godsend. I have
Yeah,
a whole
I'm
bunch
gonna
of
buy that book.
favorites. I have a whole bunch of favorite wannabe quilting. Yeah, I know it's a lot of paper in there, but I jot down ideas and I come up with all sorts of fun stuff that I can play around with. Now, on a suggestion from one of my viewers, I picked up Megan Malone's 5,500 quilt block designs. This
Wow.
is a really lovely resource as well. She doesn't give like patterns or anything like that, but I'm pretty good at for instance, if I want to make, let's say this block, let's say this block here,
Yep.
I can either do it by templates, right, and sew them, or I can do it by foundation paper piecing, or I can do it by, I know how to do that, and a lot of people don't. So like to buy like patterns, I don't buy a lot of patterns, you know, but there's all sorts of other quilt blocks in here. And I mean, like I say too, you put them in. I mean, I can draw this one out. I could probably tell you the dimensions and cutting and all of the stuff
Yep.
within a heartbeat, of what this is. But that's how I grew up making quilt blocks, right? You draw it out, then you figure out what you have to cut, and then you make your, cardboard or whatever templates you're making. My mom, the joke was, if you bought pantyhose, you know how pantyhose has that cardboard insert? You had to
Yep.
sneak them into the house because mom was stealing the cardboard. Because she was making templates, right? So that's kind of one of those running jokes we had in the house. So I don't really have a favorite. There's some very talented people out there, that are creating patterns, but I mean, I don't know, I kind of like my let's make my own pattern, let's do my own thing, right? So
I don't buy many patterns myself. I download some few, free ones, but I mostly like buying books because the books is where I get ideas from.
yes. And I mean there's some books that are worth every cent. Like I love the Jen Kingwell books. Her
Hmm.
books are, I find her the way she works with color and the way she puts colors together on a quilt block, it's just stunning results with some of her stuff, right? I mean, I love working lately. I bought the quilt recipe book, and there was another book before that. I just very much enjoyed those books because they were, like she gave the pattern, she gave the instruction, and then she has this little verbiage about, her thoughts on it. So it was, especially in quilt recipes, I mean, it was like lovely, lovely combination.
That's great. So do you prefer traditional over modern, or do you kind of like make your quilts in between? Or do you do both?
I kind of all over the place. I guess I am kind of all over the place. I do lots of nods to the traditional because that's where I started. But like to do modern techniques and modern quilt pat blocks and stuff, yes, very much so, very much. But most people probably look at my stuff and go, yeah, she's very traditional. So I'm not sure, because scrappy quilts are kind of their own genre too now, right? Because
Yep.
they're, you could say they're maximalism and they're part of the modern quilt, the modern quilt are think way of thinking, or you could say it's a very traditional because they even Dear Jane was a scrappy quilt, right? The traditional methods are very much the scrappy, using up your little bits and pieces, right? So it's kind of like I tend to be a little all over the place, I think.
So let me ask you this. What if you, from your perspective, not from the general definition of these types of quilts, but from your perspective, what do you think a modern quilt is?
Modern quilt makes you think. Modern quilt makes you look at quilt blocks differently. And there's like the negative space has all sorts of potential within the quilt, right? Like there's usually on a modern quilt, there's a typical modern quilt will have a lot of negative space or open space. And there are so many there's so much potential in, what you're going to quilt or what you're not going to quilt, or how you're going to do things. I mean, it's very open and very freeing, which is, I guess it's kind of yeah, it's very like improv, or crumb quilting is very much improv, right? Because
Yep.
you basically throwing whatever's in the basket into a pile and hoping for the best. So you have no idea what it's going to look like, right? So basically, we all, if we're crumb quilting, we're doing a little bit of modern quilting, right?
I'm wondering why super scrappy quilts wouldn't qualify as a modern quilt.
Well, they might, if they might be an example of maximalism.
And
Cool
so,
Canada. Cool Canada is coming to Edmonton, like the city in which I live, this summer. And I've
mhm,
entered my Kawandi that's behind me here as
mhm.
part of the Edmonton Modern Quilt Guild exhibit to explain maximalism,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I was wondering. If you
Little
call that.
all the little pieces are, it's basically I took crumb blocks, right, or bits and pieces that I was, hoping to sew together into something, and I created a kawandi out of all those little bits and pieces. So, I mean, and it is a perfect example of maximalism because nobody in their right mind would put that many little pieces into a quilt, right? But we did, right? So I guess it's kind of been that you know, it's different way of thinking about quilts too, right?
Yep.
You know, so that's part of it. And I think it's a good thing to have a bunch of different things that you can do or look at or, you know, play around with. But and I just to warn everybody, Kawandis are like the crack cocaine of quilting. They are very, very addicting because it's that slow stitching, if especially if you're doing them by hand, because it's that slow stitching and it's just very calming and it's just lovely to work with, right? So just warning people. My public service announcement.
This is a public service announcement.
Yeah, pretty much.
Be warned, you will become addicted.
Oh, very, very addictive. Yeah, because they're just nice to work with. You know, they're just relaxing.
Okay, as a quilter, is there anything you have learned that you wish someone would have told you in the beginning?
As a quilter, oh dear, something I've learned. Hmm. I think value versus color. That
Okay.
the lessons on color and color saturation. For instance, value does all the work in your quilt, color gets all the credit, right? And we're talking about light, medium, and darks.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to use up our lights and our mediums in our stash right away, and then we're left with a bunch of mediums that there's no contrast. There's not enough contrast on.
Yeah.
So I mean that I wish I would have learned that a little earlier on. And I mean, I still do it today, right? I mean, I try and work with my, you know, my mediums, trying to move them out and keep them moving because they'll just sit in your stash forever if you don't. So that kind of.
Michelle says hello to you, Brenda. Sarah
Hi.
says hello. Kelly says Brenda's very clever. Joy T says I love scrappy quilts. It's like going on an adventure with a surprise ending and no stress. Sylvia says I have a sewing machine cover being made Kawandi style. What does Kawandi mean? Kelly says that's what I'm afraid of, Brenda. I don't dare do any hand projects for a while. Michelle and Joy are saying hello to each other. Okay, so you guys, if you have questions for Brenda, please post them in the chat and put a heart in front of it so I can see it so I don't miss your questions.
Okay,
Okay.
what is a Kawandi was one of the questions, right?
I'm asking what a Kawandi is because I don't know what that means.
Oh, okay. What happened is the Sidi tribe in India, right? Were left behind and they came over to India as slaves and they were left behind. Basically, the people that brought them as slave labor abandoned them. And instead of being returned to or trying to figure out a way home because they didn't really know where they were, they tried to make their living in, or, you know, the best they could in India. And what happens is that they're living in very remote areas of India and they're not really accepted into Indian society, right? So they're living with scraps. There's a very meager existence, right?
Yeah.
They what they do is they're basically going through garbage dumps and pulling out cottons and t-shirts and, you know, like sari fabrics that have been discarded, and they're making blankets and, you know, mats to sleep on and, you know, little rugs to walk on and, you know, things to keep the wind out of their windows and, you know, that kind of thing. And they're basically they make kawandis, right? So what they do is they sew together a backing and then they start their hand stitching process by folding over fabrics.
Mm-hmm.
Notice I'm not saying cotton, fabrics. They
Okay.
fold over fabrics and they stitch along that edge to get that really sharp, crisp edge. And they just keep going around and around and around until they hit the center. So this is very much a free form quilt that they're making, but they're starting it from the outside and working in. Now, when I did my very first Kawandi, I had a lot of reservations about working from the outside in because as I was doing my little topper, it started to volcano, like it started to rise up in the middle. And
Uh-huh.
somebody just told me, said, never mind that, just trust the process. Just keep working on it. It'll be fine. Okay. And I trusted the process and it came out flat. I was just, I didn't know what to say. It was like, okay, well, obviously I have no idea what I was doing. But yeah, it started volcanoing and then it came down and put into place, right? So it
Mhm.
was kind of an interesting little project to do because it was, it was supposed to be, I don't know. I was expecting it to be all sorts of other things, doing other things with it, but I couldn't believe how flat it came out. So I was quite impressed with that.
That's
I
great.
see you got one block on.
Sounds like a good learning experience.
Yeah, it was. It was a very good learning experience. And it did teach me about having some patience because I am not, I guess I'm not one that like, how did this work? I was quite surprised at how well it worked, but I was quite shocked that it worked.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a beautiful process. It really was. And I found myself getting very calm as I was hand stitching it around too, right? So, and there's no wrong way of doing it, and it was lovely. So anyway, I was getting more on Kawandis, how they became so popular in North America, is a Margarita Fabrizio came. She went out, and I forget how old she was, but she went out to see the CD people,
Uh-huh.
and she saw these beautiful quilts, and they showed her how to do them. And she was an artist, so she took them back to North America, and she started making them and displaying them in her gallery. And the the North Americans are just eating them up. They just couldn't believe how gorgeous these things were. So and they are very beautiful. Like some of the stuff that she does, because she has very um sometimes when you're an artist where you're a painter or something like that, you have a better eye for color.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean she's already had, the color, like she understands color better, and everything to begin with. So yeah, her stuff was just gorgeous. So
I'll have to look it up to see what it looks like.
yeah, well, I have a couple, and you can do them as well with you can also do them with um on sewing machines because I've
Okay.
made a couple of them on sewing machines as well, and those are lovely to work with. Those ones are really a lot of fun.
Sounds like very interesting.
Yeah, but they are
Yeah.
addicting. I'm warning you now.
Okay. uh, uh, Debbie wants to know, what is your most memorable quilt that you have gifted?
Ah, my most memorable quilts. I made a quilt for my daughter and her husband, and I gave it to them as a wedding gift. And they still have it on their bed. They still use it. There's a lot of quilts I've made. I mean, I started making charity quilts too a while ago. And those charity quilts, when you see the person light up, because it's a lot of people, they scoff at the idea of making charity quilts, and it's like you're doing something very different for them by giving them a charity quilt or
Yeah.
making a charity quilt. You're really doing something for that child or for that adult that they may not understand right away, but they do eventually learn that that is, you have given them something, you know, where every stitch is made with love, you know, and it's all there. But yeah, my girls, they like, oh, another quilt, oh yay, you know. And now they're kind of like, Mom, we have lots of quilts, we don't need any more quilts. So I mean, that you kind of get met with that every once in a while. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, I think my I don't know if it's charity quilts or the quilts I've made for friends and family that I'd find the first ones that I started to make, I mean, those mean a lot to me now,
Yeah.
right? You know,
It
but
always, it always amazes me how people will, you have too many of this. You should not have so much of this. Like it's their God-given right to even make that comment.
what was this?
I said it always amazes me when people say, well, you have too many of this, or you have too much of that. Why do you keep doing it? You know, like it's their right to ask you that question.
I suppose.
It's kind of like coming in my house and telling me I have too many plants.
I am a better in the plant business. There's never too many plants.
I could
There's
never
always
have enough plants. There is no number of plants is too much in my book. But you know, that's the nature of having a gift. Okay. So what, wait, let me make sure there's no more questions. Kelly says those, and I bet I'm about to say this wrong, city women, SIDDI, I'm not sure how to say that.
Well,
Women
CD
are
women.
amazing. Huh?
Yes, the CD women, you said it right. Yeah.
I said it right, CD? Okay. Are amazing. They are so talented. What I will do, whatever I do will be a hot mess, Kelly says. Aww. And then Joy says, I love watching how women and men from other countries create such beautiful items via sewing, quilting, weaving, knitting. It is very amazing. I agree. And then Kelly says, right, Joy T. I am happy with what I produce, but there are so many talented people around. Yes, there is. And Joy said, YouTube takes us places we may never see. Gotta live it. Gotta love it.
The woman that said it would be a hot mess, can I just comment back on that?
Yes, sure, go ahead.
I have not seen a Kawandi. I mean, yeah, I admit mine. I thought as I was making my little table topper, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a hot mess. There's every color under the sun in here, and there's no rhyme, no reason, no this, no that. And I just kept going through because I kept some little voice in my head was saying, trust the process, it'll work, it'll work. And at the end of the day, it worked, and it wasn't a hot mess. And everything, it was a very eclectic little table topper. And it's kind of like more of an I Spy piece, but it was beautiful. So if you're thinking your work is going to be a hot mess, no, it's not. You have to trust the process, and it will probably be very lovely. Right? But I mean, that's just my comment back to the person that, you know, said it would be a hot mess. It's not. It's not going to be a hot mess.
Okay, you guys, I need more questions. And in the meantime, I can ask one of mine. What do you like best about making a quilt? And what do you love doing the most? The example would be piecing, quilting, binding, borders, you know. What do you like the most? What part of the quilting process do you love the most?
What part I love the most? I actually probably love the piecing. That
Okay.
I mean, I could spend hours on piecing. That there's one Bonnie Hunter pattern that whenever I got stressed out, I would yank out of my closet. I always have one in progress. It's the crazy pineapple with 45 pieces in a little 5-inch square. It's insane. Yeah. But I find it very calming. So, I mean, to do foundation paper piecing, right? So, I mean, that's not that I get stressed out anymore. I'm retired, but you know, it's just a lovely way of spending the day for me.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's very different. I know that some people, but yeah, like, I mean, there's just some cool things that, like, I don't mind binding. Sometimes binding, oh, thank God it's over. You know, you get that, you know, hallelujah. And then sometimes the quilting is lots of fun, you know, like where I'm doing like hand quilting or whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think more the piecing. Piecing is probably my favorite. My favorite,
Um,
just because I enjoy that process.
Robin wants to know, do you ever do EPP or FPP?
Yes, to both. Yes, to both. I love English paper piecing and I love foundation paper piecing. I love drawing out foundation paper piecing patterns and I even love doing my own EPP designs now. You know, that
Oh,
we're
okay.
playing around with them, right? Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, most patterns, believe it or not, can be made into an EPP pattern. And a lot of people don't know that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's I just find it very joyful working doing that kind of work. So, you know, but yeah, it's very relaxing to sit back and do those that hand stitching, you know,
Yep.
so yeah. It's boring to watch, because you can tell by the views you get when you post something like that.
I'm
But yeah,
probably gonna know. I'm probably gonna know the answer to the next question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. What is your favorite type of quilt? Applique, piece, whole cloth, and why?
mm, I'm going to say pieced, of course, because I like the piecing. I have seen some beautiful whole cloth quilts. Applique, there's so many ways to do applique now. And applique is always fun to do for an art block. If you're making a sampler quilt, then you want,
Mhm.
you know, different things to appear on your quilt. You know, applique is the way to go because you can put some real cute things together very quickly, you know, and, you know, make birds or flowers or whatever you want, you know. So applique is always fun.
Come on, you guys. I need questions from the audience. All right. So here's my next question. What is the hardest thing about creating a quilt from your perspective?
Oh. I think it has to do with, and I is picking colors. There's some days I put together colors and I just whip, poof, we're done. No problem. And then there's other days where I struggle and I struggle and I struggle and I've got a piece of, let's say, focal fabric and I'm trying to find scraps that I need to match with this and I'm trying to, so I'm waiting for the right light outside because I need to do that in bright daylight and I'm waiting for this and and I struggle because I'm overthinking it. It's very important not to overthink stuff, but I do that every once in a while just because I can overthink stuff. But yeah, it's that sometimes if I don't overthink it, I can just throw together colors and they'll look great and it'll be fine. But as soon
Yep.
as I start overthinking it, it's just, oh, what have I done? You know, it's just one of those things. I guess it's everybody wakes up in a different mood sometimes, and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna overthink everything, including my coffee, you know. Should I have coffee? How much coffee should I have? Like,
Let's see what the audience has to say about. Okay, audience, what is your favorite type of quilt that you like to make? Do you like applique, piece, whole cloth? Tell me and Brenda, what style of quilt do you like to make? That's your most favorite thing. Tell us.
my most favorite thing is probably piece quilt. I do have my favorite run to get her done blocks that I like to put together. But I mean, and the potato chip block is one of them, just because they're very quick, right? The potato chip blocks are very quick, and you can use up a lot of quick little scraps very quickly. But that's one of my favorite things. That's why I like piece blocks, right? So it's what else? There's like also I love churn dashes and friendship stars, but I know some people they struggle with half square triangles, but that's not real. I don't really worry about half square triangles. I don't have a problem with them. And it might have to do with the fact that I have a little tiny hole as my my sewing plate has a little
Yeah.
tiny hole instead of a mouth.
Uh-huh.
If you have a mouth, your half square triangle tends to, slide down into the mouth, where if you have a little hole, it doesn't have that opportunity. So yeah, there's certain things I do like. So what answers have you got from the other guys?
Okay. So so with Debbie says she likes improv blocks.
Yes, those are fun.
Vicky Bush says I like piece quilting. So with Debbie says I struggle with flying geese. Vicky Bush says English paper piecing too. Anyone else want to give us some input on what you like to make? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I'm interested in always what's inspiring people, because there's something too, like it's what's inspiring you at the moment. I mean, when I could go speak at Quilt Guilds, because now I'm speaking at Quilt Guilds, and it's like I always want to know what they are working on. I want to know, I want to stay for the show and tell, right? I want to stay for to hear what kind of quilt blocks they want to make next, or what's the next project or whatever. So yeah, that's one question we could. What's your next sewing project? We can ask the viewers. Put in the comments. What's your next sewing project?
So Deborah wants to know what's your next sewing project.
What mine is?
No, I'm telling them that you want to know what their next sewing project is.
Yes, let's ask them that question. Yeah.
Here's a question for you guys in the channel. What's your next project you plan on starting? Michelle the quilter says I love paper piecing and love to piece quilt tops. My guild makes a lot of charity quilts. Vicky Bush says she struggles with binding. Okay, while we're waiting on their answer, how many quilts do you think you've made, and how many do you still have, Brenda?
Oh my goodness. Well, how many quilts I've made? I don't know. I have a horrible story to tell you for what happened last year. Last year we did the Orphan Block Challenge, and we had a call for both the guilds I belong to. I belong to the Edmonton Modern Quilt Guild and the Edmonton District Quilt Guild. And there were so many people in need of quilts, from Heavenly Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And there were requests for people that were doing the wildfire victims were needing help, and the Ukrainian immigrants to our province that needed assistance. And the list went on and on and on. Plus we have all the normal things like Lorena shelter for battered women and their families. We have all of these needs. And my husband and I, just last year, we lost track at 60 something as to how many quilts we gave the guilds to work on, right?
Wow.
So they could, I did the quilt tops, and they did the long arming. So we lost track at I was either 60 or 80 quilts. And I asked the community service person from the Edmonton District Guild how many quilts I gave her, because she was in charge of distributing them out too, because all of the guilds around us, like the Leduc Guild and the White Court Guild, and they were all like, do you have quilts? Because wow, we need quilts. And so she was in charge of passing those out to them as well. If they needed a quilt and we had quilts, and give them quilts, right? So, or give them quilt tops to work on. So because we had so much of that going on last year, I asked her, and she said you gave me over 100. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh, okay. So yeah, I have no idea how many quilts I've made over my lifetime. None.
So I'm curious. Quilts are cost money to make. Let's talk about the down and dirty here. We know that quilts cost money to make, and when we donate them, do you keep up with how many you donate so that you can take a tax cut off your taxes when you file taxes every year?
We can't really do that in Canada. it would be nice to be able to do that, but we don't. We don't have that option. I know maybe that's an American thing, but we don't have that option. But we have to give to a charity, and the charity has to agree to give us a receipt for fair market value. But when you're giving them to a guild, they're not a charity, they're a nonprofit organization, and there's no receipt issued.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
So, I mean, it creates a bit of a problem. But I mean, it also speaks to how I started this YouTube channel as well, right? So if the guilds need quilt batting, I can donate quilt batting. If they need backing, I can donate backing. If they need thread, I can donate thread. You know, if members are, I mean, that's what I'm, basically, I'm not running this YouTube channel of mine for profit, right?
Yeah.
It's support for charity endeavors or whatever we're going to be doing so that we could help people out. Because I think that's important. The quilting community is amazing, but I mean, I have also received lots from the quilting community, right? Because I mean, they are constantly inspiring me, right? So it's my turn to give back.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so Michelle, the quilters, I already read that one. Then Charlotte says, hello from hot Texas. Hi, Charlotte. Welcome, welcome. Vicky says, lap quilt for my sister-in-law is what she's working on or going to start. Lori says, I like scrap quilting. I have been fortunate to have taken classes with Bonnie Hunter. Robin says, I'm working on, that's right, she is. Oh my gosh. Robin says she's working on a 12,000 hexagon quilt, and the next is a 18,000 piece. Wow. I can't even imagine. That's a lot of little hexies. So with Debbie says, I need to finish a small wall quilt for a guild show, but want to finish my wonky leader ender quilt. This is for our bed and have so many to quilt, just need batting. Michelle, I didn't see what you said. And then Michelle says to Brenda, that is wonderful. I have referred your name to our guild program committee. Hey, I'm sure she appreciates that. Hello, Brenda Foley. And Jeanne says, do you always make scrap quilts or do you always make plain quilts? With large pieces of fabric planned. This was for you, Brenda.
I usually get scraps donated, so I have to cut kind of to the smallest common denominator. But the EPP people, here we go. I got EPP.
Here, let me spotlight you so they can see what you're doing.
The English paper piece hexies, here we go. Yes. Yes.
All right, show it to them again. Show it to them again.
The English paper piece hexies, yes. We hear you are singing the song of my people.
Wow, that's a lot of little blocks.
A lot of little blocks. But I mean, they're also, this was something I harvested out of my crumbs, right? So this is what normally a quilter would throw away. Somebody who's not using their smaller piece, they just pitch it, right? So because I get a lot of scrap donations, or I don't know what I'm gonna get for donations, right? So I tend to cut my scraps into like 2 by 3.5 inch, right? So now I can make lots of blocks out of, these smaller pieces, right? So that's why I don't mind piecing the smaller stuff. I also have the next size down, a big bin of it, but.
Hey, Laura Lynn, welcome, welcome.
Is that Laura Lynn from the mom and pop quilt shop?
Yes, it sure is. Hang on a second. I need to share Brenda's channel too. Hold on a minute, you guys. Let me share the link of Brenda's channel. Please go over there if you're not subscribed and share your love with her and subscribe to her channel. And yeah, okay.
I love the mom and pop quilt shop. She is just charming. Laura Lynn is just charming.
She's totally amazing.
You guys haven't watched her channel. That is just. And what is it, Walt? She calls her long arm Walt. Is it Walt?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't name equipment or put names on machines and stuff, so I don't really pay attention to what people call them.
Actually, the rule of thumb is if it's a commercial machine, you name it a male. If it's a domestic machine, you name it female. I have a Brutus at home at Tucson, and Brutus is a 1915 Singer that was originally a commercial embroidery machine.
Well, not
So
to sound
Brutus,
combative or anything, but why?
I don't know. I was told the rules. I was like, okay, yeah, I know. So
That's interesting.
So Brutus was a commercial embroidery machine. So when it comes to like free motion quilting on him, you cannot feed the quilt fast enough because he's fast and he's quick and he is mighty. So, but yes, very, very cool. You know, to have a sewing machine that's over 100 years old and still works. So
Vicky says she just subscribed to your channel, Brenda.
thank you.
Mom and Pop says, "Aw, shucks." Robin says, "I'm working on 3/4 inch, and then the next will be 1/2 inch." I guess she's talking about EPP.
Yeah.
Mom and Pop says, "Yes, Walt equals long arm." Okay, so we're caught up here. Okay. Alrighty. Is there anyone in your family besides yourself that makes quilts?
In my generation, like myself or my cousins, is that kind of no.
In your family at all?
No, that's that's my there's nobody else that's admitting to that kind of insanity. We have a lot of my cousins on my dad's side. Some of them are painters, and you know they do other things, right? They do other things that are art related. But but no, I don't know of any cousins that I know that are quilters. So
you don't have kids or anything that sews?
no, I taught both my daughters how to sew. And one sews more than the other, but I mean they can both sew on buttons and stuff like that, but neither one of them is avidly sewing, so it's not something that everybody wants to do, I guess.
No.
But well, maybe they'll come around eventually.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. But oh, sorry about that. My phone is dingling again.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, okay.
The Zoom program tends to take care of background noise.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay.
Yep. Okay. The next question I have is, what is your go-to sewing machine?
My 301A, my Singer 301A, the black one that's right here. This one usually occupies most of my time. It was my mom's sewing machine. It was the sewing machine I learned how to sew on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it is from the 50s. I believe, yeah, it's from the 50s.
And what kind of long arm machine do you have?
I have a Grand Quilter, and it is a Bernina. I can't remember now. You know what? We got a long arm and I never put a stitch on it. I read through the book and the room was cluttered with all sorts of other stuff in there that was non-quilting related or non-sewing related. And I went through, read the book. I knew how to operate the machine, and now I have forgotten, so I'd have to start all over again. But it took a while to even clear out the room. All of that stuff was in, and I'm like, oh, but yeah. But yeah, I haven't put much mileage on my long arm. So my long arming journey stopped at acquiring.
Well,
I
sometimes
got one, but that's about it. What was that?
I said, I think this happens sometimes. I told a story about I have a Janome, and when my husband bought it for me for Christmas, and it finally got here in January, it sat on the table out of the box for 10 months because I was afraid of it.
Yeah.
because I went from a Singer to a Janome 6700B. And I've never had such a fancy machine. Okay, let me see here. Mom says Laura Lynn says she'll be back. She's on baby chicken duty. Okay, so my next question will be, do you have any other hobbies that you dabble in besides this?
I used to knit. I used to cross stitch. I did lots of crocheting. Was never my bag, never my thing, because I could knit faster than I could crochet. I don't know why. I'm just like, don't, not a crochet. I'm not a crocheter, I guess.
Did you start out knitting before crocheting?
Yes.
See, because I think that's what it is. I can't knit. It's like I have two left hands, but I've crocheted since I was 11.
Yeah, I don't believe I ever learned how to crochet correctly. Or I don't hold it correctly.
Yeah. I started out, my aunt is the one that showed me how to start it. And
Yeah.
she showed me how to do the 4 basic stitches or 5 basic stitches. And then over time, I self-taught after that, by looking at reading books, and mostly was reading books and following the directions.
Oh, for crocheting?
Yep, because internet access to this videos and stuff didn't happen until the last, 10 years maybe?
Yep.
Before then, you used books or magazines. I have a lot of magazines too, of where that's how I learned. And then when I did finally, then I joined the thing you see on the wall behind me.
Yeah.
That mandala, that's crocheted.
That's beautiful.
It has 32 colors in it.
Yeah, I like how it goes from the deep, the deeper tones out. That's gorgeous.
Those cooler ones were probably when it was a little bit chilly outside, or we were having northern lights. Could have been any of that. It just depended on how I felt that day when it was time to change the color up to the next row. I didn't have no set. The pattern the pattern was a year-long crochet along. And so every month you got however many rows. And she did supply colors and things like that for those who wanted it, but I didn't follow her color. I used my own. So this is number 3 DMC, Lily, and Red Heart.
Oh, wow.
So it's that pearlized cotton yarn.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to knit with, we had a knitting shop or a wool shop here in the West End, not too far, when I was knitting, and she loved me because she knew I was walking into that wool shop and I'd spend $300 and not blink. She was like, "Oh yes, here she comes." Yeah, but boy, she has some gorgeous, gorgeous fabric. Oh, gorgeous yarns.
I'll bet. I have quite a bit of a stash myself, but I donated quite a bit this year to someone else because I've just kind of slowed down on crocheting because I've been quilting so much.
Yeah, I started having problems with my hands because I was knitting so much, and my daughter took it away from me. Was doing a lot of smaller projects by then. So, but she was kind of like, "Yeah, Mom, you probably shouldn't be working on this stuff so much." So I'm like, "Okay, I guess." But
okay, hi, Sarah Stitches. Sarah says, see that my mouse is sitting right on top of her phone. I see a Singer 301. What a beauty. Must be talking about yours, Brenda.
yeah.
And then Sarah says, I have family in deposit I don't know what that sentence means, Sarah, about deposit New York. Okay. Let me see
Okay,
here.
my first crumb block. I gotta square it up, but I have an alligator.
Here, let me spotlight you so they can see.
I have an alligator in there.
Yeah, look at that. That's too cute. Oh, it's awesome.
Yes, we have some pretty weird stuff in there, some of them, but what the heck?
My
One.
My next question is, when did you start your YouTube channel? What were your goals at the beginning? And how has that evolved over time?
We started the YouTube channel in 2001, 2021, I believe. I have to look it up. Oh my gosh. So what happened was, my students were kind of like sitting there like, you should, like put stuff up on your lessons up on video so that we don't have to bug you when we have to refer back to them, right? So we have something to refer to. And it was kind of, and Les and I kind of talked about it for about a year, almost a year before we actually dropped our first video. And what it was my biggest regret is that we didn't start it when the first question first came out about starting, right? This.
Yeah.
And it was because I think what happened, there were so many people trapped at home during that COVID, the first part of the COVID, they didn't know what to do with themselves. So they were, okay, let's do some quilting, let's do some knitting, let's do some crocheting, let's do something to keep me from going crazy, and I mean, everybody kind of understood that, right? So that's
why Legos were constantly out of stock, because people were buying those too.
yeah. Yeah, it was one of those things where it kind of happened by accident. And then the channel, we were chugging along, and all of a sudden we took off. And for the life of me, I did not know why. I still to this day don't know why. And there was a couple of videos that we almost didn't put out that are probably our best videos. So do I know what I'm doing on YouTube? No, I'm just having fun. We're out here to have fun and, give away some cute patterns maybe, and hopefully people will try. But yeah, we're not. It was one of those things. Now it's kind of like I put out cute patterns, hoping that, well, people might like them. I have an idea book and a box actually of ideas that I'm just drawing from now. I just pull them out. Okay, let's do this one. Let's try this one. Let's try this pattern. Let's try that. Let's try this, right? So that's what I do now, right? So it has evolved other than the basic lessons to let's try to make this or let's try to make that. We also do a lot of we were doing case studies too, where you could take one block and just start changing an element and you see what else, other things that you can get from that, right? So that was also a lot of fun to do those too.
How long have you had your channel now?
It's probably been almost 3 years. 3 years. Almost 3 years now.
So, Joy T wants to know, do you know the Grocery Girls?
The who?
Grocery Girls.
No, I don't. Are they a quilting channel?
Joy, can you expand on your question? And Becky says, hello, Becky, welcome. While we're waiting on her to answer that, what's your guilty pleasure?
Mine? Chocolate. In the quilting community or in like real life?
Whatever. It's a random question. You can answer it however you want to answer that question.
Yeah, we went down to the States. My husband would not say chocolate, by the way. We went down to the States and we did, the exchange rate and the taxes in Arizona or lack thereof. And then we did the duty that we'd have to pay in Canada, which is their goods and service tax credit, which is like 5%. and all of this stuff. And it was still cheaper to buy fabric in the US than it was to buy here in Canada.
It's cheaper to buy
So,
fabric in the US anywhere you're at, I think.
yeah.
It's just getting
So,
past all the shipping costs.
yeah, well, and it was kind of, I thought at first, wow, that's kind of terrible, but you know, like, yeah, so I went shopping, and I think my husband, after about the fifth or sixth store, he was like, oh God. So yeah, and when we got to Canada, you know, like we basically showed them a whole mitt full of the immigration officers there, the Canadian immigration officers there. We showed them a mitt full of receipts. Yes, we're over. That's what we'd like to declare. Where do we pay? And yeah, that was pretty much it. They were quite happy to take our money at the border for the, you know, the goods and service tax credits. So, or the goods and service tax, and that was it. It was fine. But I
Do they,
did pick up some beautiful fabric in the States. And I tried to look for things that we don't see in Canada.
right.
So that, you know, kind of also puts, because there's certain designers we do see in Canada and others that we just, no, we don't see these people. So
Do they search your car when you're going back across the Canadian line?
they've never searched our car. I don't think less than I fit their profile for people to search. I
I
don't
was
know.
just curious, you know.
They've never
You went
searched.
across
They
the border
can.
and bought fabric, how are they gonna know?
They can, if they want to, they can, but
Yeah.
we've never had a problem with them, you know, but I guess, yeah, they could. They probably could turn us over and, you know, take apart our car and find out that there's tons and tons of fabric.
Always curious how countries, you know, do all that. Okay. Um, y'all don't have more questions for Brenda? That's kind of shocking. Okay. So this is an off. So we're going to start rapid fire. But the warm up, we're going to do a little warm up first. What do you wish you would have invented yourself that relates to quilting?
Me?
Yeah.
Rotary cutters. Oh my God, this has revolutionized the way we do things so much. Because I started out quilting using a pen or a pencil and a paper and a ruler, and then cutting them out with scissors. The rotary cutter is the invention to have made. That's the one that you would have made your most money on.
Yep. Okay. What was your worst quilt disaster if you had one? And were you able to fix whatever happened?
My worst quilt disaster was having a dog having an accident on a quilt
Oh no.
that I couldn't get out.
Oh,
And I had to start all over again.
yikes.
And I mean, that happens, right? You know, like you just,
Yep.
okay, that's not what you were hoping for, but yeah, okay, that's what happened. So,
Oh, Becky asked, how do you find Brenda? So let me share her link again. Here's the link, Becky, so that you can follow it. Should show up here in just a second.
yeah, Conquering Mount Swartmore with Brenda.
Come on, bot. Show it. There it is. That's how you can find Brenda. So if you're not subscribed to Brenda's channel, mosey on over there and help her out and show some love and subscribe to her channel. I'm sure she would love that.
Yeah, there's also Laura Lee from Mom and Pop's Quilt Shop and Deb from Sewing with Debbie. Those guys are also on here, right? For the chat and as part of the chat.
Yeah, so with Debbie's in here, but I don't have her channel link, I don't think. I'll
Yeah.
have to go look it up. I didn't know she had a channel.
Yes, she does. And it's actually it's really nice little channel there.
I'll definitely have to go check it out then.
We're gonna have a whole bunch of people now running over there and checking her out. It's good. It's good.
Oh, is it Sew with Debbie? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Hang on, let me see if I can locate it. What's wrong?
Oh, she's like cursing my name when I'm doing this. Yeah, she's out of BC, Canada.
Okay, here is Sew with Debbie's link. Who was the other channel that was mentioned?
Laura Lee from Mom and Pop.
Oh, okay. I already have her link on here.
Yeah.
And Mom and Pop Quilt Shop. And here's Laura Lynn's. I wonder if my husband's still in the channel. Yep, he's still here.
Okay.
I thought he was going to come surprise everybody and get on the Zoom.
Oh, is that his draw to check out your to look for trolls or whatever while you're sewing?
No, my husband's in Denmark right now. They just got their ship into port, and it's going to get pulled out of the water soon, I think, because it's in for dry dock repairs. So,
Oh yeah.
and since he's he's not going to have to work a shift at night. He thought he would drop in, so he's sitting in the chat right now talking, or was talking, but not now. I don't know what he's doing right this minute. Ah, this moved. Hi, Vicky Rumsey. Mom and Pop says, hello, the lovely So Becca. Hi, Becca. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, So Becca.
Okay, so my next question is going to be, I need questions from you guys, please. So if you want to ask Brenda a question, make sure you put a heart in front of it and ask the question. What would you like to do in the world of quilting that you haven't already done?
Are you asking what my next quilt that I want to make?
It's like, whatever you have. It's whatever you think you haven't done that you want to do.
And I want to do there. I have a few things on my bucket list, and I think, oh, I have a few things on my bucket list. There was a couple of quilts I did, and I immediately, with a bunch of small intense piecing, and I immediately took Dear Jane off my list. And then I brought her back onto my list a year later thinking, well, that's not that bad. We could do that. I don't know what I was thinking, but anyways. So the Dear Jane is on my list. It's not top of my list, but it is on my list. I would like to do a variation of trip around the world. I know every quilter should make at least one trip around the world quilt, just so they say that they can. I would like to make a variation on that. And I haven't quite figured out how to make a fun variation so that everybody with all their different skill sewing levels can, be part of that sew along. Let's see. And what else? What else? I know there's a few quilts that I have in mind, but I don't know if I want how much applique and whatnot I want to do. And I have a collaboration coming out right now that we're going to be making squares from that collaboration and showing just my squares, not the ones that the other people have made on my channel. And those squares. Katie, those squares are beautiful. It is amazing how gorgeous those squares are. Yeah. And, so we dealt with some very talented people. Future Cat from New Zealand, Michelle from Bits and Pieces Quilting, and Kelly from Kelly's Quilts and Cruises. And Kelly's from BC, Canada as well. And Michelle is right in the middle of moving back to Ottawa, Canada. So it was a wonderful adventure for us to do that collaboration, and we were pattern testing and everything, and yeah, I was really impressed with some of the blocks that came out of there. So I was very happy that they agreed to do the collaboration with me as well. I guess I was kind of open to a collaboration, and so were those ladies, or those people. So yay, thumbs up.
So Becca wants to know how many pieces are in the quilt behind you, Brenda?
Thousands. I literally, and Becca's like, what? Are you nuts? This is a Kawandi and it's a crumb quilt. So instead of using larger patches, to do your piecing with, like a traditional Kawandi, I took crumb blocks and then I just worked with the crumb blocks and treated them as a flat piece of fabric to do my Kawandi. And those, I showed a video of this on my channel on how to do this. This was actually very good. The only thing that's missing off of my Kawandis is the tulas, the little flowers on the corners, the little drapey down flowers, because my cat apparently is a critic, and I sewed on one. And as I was sewing on the second one, our cat Albert was ripping off the first one. He didn't like it.
Uh-oh. That's not good.
So we don't do tulas on my Kawandi, but that's part of the little flowerette that's on the edge of the tulas, the corners of the tulas. That what makes a tula or a Kawandi complete is the tulas. But we are a tula less household because my cat doesn't like them.
Laura Lynn wants to know, which do you prefer, cake or pie?
Cake or pie? For desserts?
I don't know. The question is, which do you prefer, cake or pie? That's all it said.
I'm a cake person, not a pie person, which is like really weird. I know my mom used to make beautiful pies and everything, and I just, yeah, it's pie. We're having pie again. That kind of, I was not a very appreciative child when it came to those pie desserts.
My favorite pie is cherry pie, and I could eat them all day long.
Really?
Yes. It's the only pie that I actually really like. Now, during Thanksgiving, I would make pumpkin pies, but I don't eat pumpkin pie. But my kids and their daddy love pumpkin pie, and the whole house just smells of it. It smells so yummy, but I can't stand the taste of it. So, I would make two. Every Thanksgiving, I would make an Italian cream cake, one cherry pie, two pumpkin pies, and a cheesecake.
Yeah, I was in charge of dessert one Thanksgiving, and I didn't understand Americans have this thing about it must be pumpkin pie. Because I was told you're in charge of dessert. Okay, I'm in charge of dessert. I made my famous chocolate mousse that when you're making it, the whole house smells like you've fallen into a big chocolate vat of, it's just wonderful. So I made my chocolate mousse and I brought it to Thanksgiving, and everybody went, where's the pumpkin pie? And I says, why would I make pumpkin pie? I don't even like pie. And they were just mortified that there was no pumpkin pie.
And mine love the pie, and they, for the longest time, Mom, why won't you make pumpkin? Because I don't like it. But we do. Why can't you make it? I'm like, okay, sauce. And then when I made the first one, I made my first one from scratch because that's how I make all my desserts.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I said, well, how does it taste? Because I wasn't going to taste it. And because I just can't do sweet potatoes either. So they're so close, like, gross.
Yeah, we had people.
They were in love. Now, other thing that they like that I didn't never partake in is they liked eggnog, and I don't.
Yeah, well, I had to laugh. There were other people sitting at other tables because it was kind of an organized event, and there were people at other tables going, is that chocolate? And they were sniffing over. It was like, they were just like wide-eyed children. Is that chocolate? But everybody, once they tasted the chocolate mousse, they were like, this is why you brought chocolate mousse. Oh, yes. Okay, you can bring that again next year. That's not a problem. We can do without the chocolate pie. So I was like, okay. So some people was, but I didn't realize it was a very traditional meal at Thanksgiving. And it was like, oh, dear.
Yep, it definitely is. But, I also made unconventional things for Thanksgiving. We didn't eat turkey. I I would buy a smoked ham that weighed around 6 or 7 pounds, and I would buy a chicken hen that weighed around that same body weight, and that's what we had was a stuffed chicken hen, and we would have smoked ham with pineapple rings on it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I would make for me. And I always had chicken giblet gravy to go with the stuffing that came out of the bird, and you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my friend did invite us to a very traditional Thanksgiving supper this past Thanksgiving for US, and she had the sweet potatoes with the marshmallows and the green beans with the what do they call them? The dried onions.
You're talking about the fried ones? They're fried onions?
Yeah, they're fried onions, but they're in a can and you take them and you shake them out. Yeah, they're like she had those. I was like, it was very different. I sure thought it was kind of cool. It was interesting to see all that, but yeah. But I guess it's what you get used to and what you grow up with, and you know.
Okay, let's catch up on the chat real quick.
Okay.
Becca says Boston cream pie. Is it a cake or is it a pie? Laugh out loud. Robin says both with ice cream. Vicky says doesn't matter because it tastes good. Vicky says love Boston cream. Then Laura Lynn says love Kawandi, Kwandi.
Yeah, Kawandi. Yeah.
And then she says fulas are missing, which I don't know what that is.
The tulas are the little corner flowerets, the tulas. That's what she's talking about. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then Becca says, is that the same as the potato chip block I've heard so much about?
No. The potato chip block is very different. And I guess I'm the one who coined the phrase potato chip block. So I guess I started this thing on YouTube now, but it's a pattern, I guess, that's been around since the 40s.
Oh, wow.
But I'm the first one who called it a potato chip block. So, yeah.
I was wondering what a potato chip block even was. Because I've seen some people mention it, and I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's really fast, quick to do. Here's I'll show you one that I started. I've got a pile of them here when I get to them. This is one where you have 2 in the center, and then you sew 2 this way and then 2 this way. Now I'm doing light around the dark center, and then I just put color around the outside. And I do 2 rounds of color.
Okay.
But I'm using 2 by 3.5 inch rectangles. Other people, if they have a bunch of leftover jelly roll strips, they'll use 2.5 by 4.5. So, and you can go around and make this thing as big as you want.
Okay. Let's see here. Lori says strawberry rhubarb pie. Vicky says, Lori, I'm with you. So with Debbie says rhubarb or pumpkin pie or bumbleberry pie. Lori says great minds think alike, Vicky. Vicky says lemon meringue. My mother loved making lemon meringue. Vicky says, I also love lemon meringue. Sarah says prime rib for Thanksgiving. I do not care for turkey. Now I made prime rib for Christmas dinner. Yeah, I don't like turkey either. That's why we did chicken hen and ham for Thanksgiving. And then I saved prime rib for Christmas dinner.
Well, I'm with you on the turkey. Turkey on our household gets 3 days. That's it. The day we eat it as a family, 2 days of leftovers. That's it. After that, I bring out the picket sign. No more turkey. Because I'm just not into any more turkey after that. I don't care how good it is. It's like, yeah.
Let's see. Becca says, I've never heard of that until I just heard tons of people talking about Brenda's potato chip blocks. Laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question. What is your favorite color and why?
Oh, that one's hard. There's so many favorite ones to choose from. I when it comes to working to colors, I like all of them except brown. Because brown I find I don't work with it well. I'm not
Yeah,
as creative with browns as I am with all the other colors. But when you're talking about what colors do you like in the world, or what colors do you like, in your home or whatever, brown, I like them all, right? Really. I mean, I don't know why I say, oh, I love pink, I love red, I love, I love blue. I don't know why I say that, because I love all of them. Brown, I have a hard time working with, but I do love brown. I just have a hard time working with it, which kind of sounds strange, but.
now, if you asked me that question before I moved to Greenland, I probably would have told you purple and blue. But it was because I had access to lots of colors when I was gardening. My whole garden was colorful.
Yeah.
But you can't hardly find anything purple or blue in color to put in your garden. It's very rare to find anything that has those two specific colors in them. But when I moved to Greenland, I guess I'd been here, I don't know, when did I make the mandala got made, I think in 2016 or either 2015. And it was then that I realized my influences with the color of the mandala came from what was going on around me, because during the summer months, we're about to hit our 22 hours, or 22 hours daylight mark come the longest day, which is coming up soon. And then in the winter months, it's 22 hours at the height of winter solstice.
Yep.
And everything here, especially from the time the snow is off the ground and we're getting 40 degrees to start with, it's like this instant trigger. The first thing you see is a dandelion plant one day. You walk by that same dandelion plant the next day and it has 10 blossoms open on it.
Yeah.
That's how fast it happens. And so when I was seeing these colors and I was taking pictures, I'm like, gosh, I need to make something that has all these colors in it. And then in the winter months, you get to experience not just snow, but northern lights and the little 2 hours of daylight you get these really colorful sunsets that shine across the lake. And, it's just, that's what triggered all this use of the colors I'm using. I would have never thought I would have used all these colors in anything until after I had moved here.
Okay, there's one thing that a lot of people don't know. I spent quite a bit of time up in Northwest Territories in Canada, right? So yes, the midnight sun and where you watch like June 21st or June 20th, we were up at Qaqortoq. I don't know, people are going, what's a Qaqortoq? But it's a Qaqortoq. And you'd watch the sun come down, 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 and bounce off the landscape and come back up, right? It was like the weirdest thing, right? Because it wouldn't go down. And then in the winter months, that never really, the sun barely comes up. It gets lighter and lighter, like it's going to come up, and then it starts going darker and darker and darker. Yes, we've seen those. And it's interesting, the effects on people and on animals as well. But yes, the colors are amazing up there. A lot of people think, well, why would there be colors up there? Well, I'm curious, why did you move to Greenland?
Love.
Well, good.
My husband's a native Greenlander, and so when we made the decision, or when he asked me to marry him, and I said yes, and then I came here for a visit before we ever decided on who was going to do the move. We wanted to see how my asthma would be here during the middle of winter. So I came during the middle of winter. Or I came here the middle of December and I left the middle of January. So I got to experience quite a bit of the cold stuff. We wanted to see if it was the cold air that was the trigger for my asthma, or if it was Florida in general that's bad for my asthma, because I was constantly in and out of hospital because of it. Come find out, the humidity in Florida that's the problem, because my asthma still bothers me. Certain things trigger it. I have inhalers all over my house, and I do have a preventative. My lung capacity has changed in the last 25 years. I'm down to 63% lung capacity. But I can imagine that if I had stayed in Florida, it would be worse than that. And I probably would already be on some kind of machine to make sure I get
Oxygen, yeah.
Yeah. And right now, they say that I'm like borderline COPD because I knew it was going to happen. It's nothing I did wrong.
Yeah.
I was born as an asthmatic. My asthma has always been excruciatingly bad. And then when I reached adulthood, I started getting pneumonia. Every time I caught the flu, it would turn into pneumonia.
Yep.
I was hospitalized 3 times, and 2 of those times the doctor came in and said, if you'd have waited 1 more hour, you'd be dead.
There are theories out there that asthma is worse in polluted areas, like large cities, like, you know, industrialized areas or whatever. Like it's bad around like too many cars, you know, too much air pollution does a lot on triggering asthma. And I was just, yeah, that's amazing that you are not, if your asthma is that bad, that you're not already on oxygen or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, my immune system's been weakened a lot, and it was already weakened by the asthma anyway.
Yeah.
So I catch things easily. Now, I caught influenza several times. Every time I go to the U.S., I end up with it. But the one thing I haven't had is COVID.
Wow.
And I saw a research paper about asthmatics and COVID, and it seems that it's possible that a lot of asthmatics haven't had COVID because it's something to do with what's going on inside their lungs.
Huh.
I mean, they don't really, I mean, they're still doing studies on that, but I think it's interesting, you know, the very one thing. So probably the biggest thing I have to worry about is trying to not get pneumonia so bad that I wait till the last minute to go to the hospital, because I can't tell the difference. I can't tell the reason I end up at the last minute is because I hadn't learned how to figure out what's the difference between this being my asthma out of control versus this is pneumonia. But the last 3 times I've had pneumonia, I started feeling like this vibration that would start in my chest when I would be laying down. It sounded like crackling paper.
Yeah.
And coming out, that's the early signs of pneumonia. So now I know when I hear that crackling or what I call vibration, call the doctor. Go see the doctor. And go ahead and get treated instead of ending up in a hospital, you know, with the thought of losing my life or something like that. So
that's not a happy thought to have happen. No, not at all.
Becca says, I've never, wait, already read that one. Laura says, get asked about this block and always direct them to Brenda's channel. And Becca says, the population thing would make sense, Brenda. And Brenda says, okay, interesting. I've had that before and had no clue what it was. Are you talking about the vibration in your chest? Yeah, it's a sure signal of pneumonia. And it sucks. So anyway, okay, let's go to the next question. And do you guys have any questions you want to ask? I need questions. All right. So we're going to do rapid fire now. You ready?
Okay.
What 5 skills should a beginner quilter learn about to help them become good quilt makers as they learn? Yeah,
first thing is your 1/4 inch seam. And it's not necessarily a full 1/4 inch, it's like a scant 1/4 inch, so because you have to allow for the turn of the cloth. To understand how that 1/4 inch is affected by the weight of the cloth that you're working with. Sewing a straight line is always like really good, because I know some people couldn't sew a straight line to save their soul. That's always important. Cutting, taking your time and learning how to cut properly. Because if you're cutting shy, nothing is going to fit, right? Or if you're cutting too big, nothing's going to fit. So, and a good pressing technique, not ironing, pressing is very different than the ironing and pressing are two different things. Pressing is up and down motions, ironing is swishing, that
Yep.
kind of thing. To get a good pressing technique and learning to take your time pressing, because boy, you can sure mess up a block quickly if you're pressing wrong. Let's see what else. If you're given the opportunity to play in somebody else's scrap box, go for it. You will learn so much more about color and how to put all that stuff together than if you were to go buy a stack of pre-made fat quarters. Right? Because what happens is that's not fabric you bought. So, or it's not, might not even be in your taste preference or anything like that. And now go make 6 blocks. Go do this. This is your task. This is my scrap box. Go play, make 6 blocks out of it and see what you come up with, right? And it's always surprising what things, not only is that inspiring for them, it's inspiring for the guy who owns a scrap box because, wow, I wouldn't have put those colors together, but that looks really good, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, this is what we need to do. This is what we need, that, this and that. So those kinds of things become very important, but those, yeah, it's the sewing, the cutting, the pressing, color, sewing a straight line. Those are the 5 things I would make sure that the beginner knows how to do.
That's all good advice. Okay, so the next thing is suggest 5 tools that every beginner quilter should start out with and why.
First one. Here's one. A stitch ripper. I can't even pull my stitch ripper apart. A stitch ripper. This is not your enemy. This is your friend. This is like, think of it as a fabric eraser, a mistake eraser, right? This baby, if you know how to work a stitch ripper, you're golden, right? And take your time, stay calm. Yes, you're annoyed because you need to pull him out, but it's not his fault. Don't get all nuts about this, right? Yeah, stitch ripper is number 1. A good ruler with fine measurements, number 2. I like the Olaf rulers because they're very fine measurements. They're not, you line up, it's easy to see your fabric underneath because they're so fine. So you're not that thread or 2 when you're making small pieces. A good quality rotary cutter, a sharp blade on a rotary cutter, that's good. If you're hand sewing, good needles, not cheap Chinese needles. Sorry if anybody's offended by that, but good hand sewing needles if you're hand sewing. The good hand sewing needles had all the rough edges reamed out of the eye of the needle, therefore it's not shredding your thread. It's not shredding it. If you buy the cheap ones, there's little nicks in there and it will actually damage your thread as you're sewing. If you're doing a sewing machine, get good sewing machine needles. I always suggest Smets, and I suggest Smets needles in this kind of a pack where they're 100 per pack. So once you know you're quilting, because they're cheaper than buying them 5 at a time. So you can buy them directly from Smets like this. And I've never had problems with the needle actually being so damaged that it breaks the thread. Good pair of scissors. Good sharp pair of scissors. I use Fisker scissors. I mean those yeah, basically 1, 2, 3, yeah, 4. I gave you 5. Good needles, scissors, good scissors. Because you still need these.
Yeah. Becca said my throat feels a little bit like a frog. She's referring back to what we were talking about on pneumonia. That was one of her other symptoms. And then, hello, Tammy from the Siberian wind. Sorry. She says, I get to hang out for a few minutes. Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
Laura says, a friend so close, some might even say best friend. I don't know what's about. Yeah, I came in on something. And then Becca says, and some might have invented a whole theme song for that friend. So I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Okay. I missed out on something. Okay. All right. What advice could you give concerning how to take care of quilts to make them last a long time?
Oh. Take them out at least every 4 months. You know, if they're not in use, if it's not a utility quilt that's in use, what you do is you make sure you take them out every 4 to 6 months and flatten them out and let them rest flattened. Right? Because what happens is if they're cotton batting and cotton fabrics for the backing and the top, what will happen is that cotton has memory. It will create creases that do not go away, and that will weaken and damage your quilt in those areas. Then when you go to refold it, fold it differently. Don't fold it the same way you folded it up the first time. So you keep folding it like you can fold it in with the corners, throwing the corners in, or sometimes matching corner to corner, or, you know, but you fold it differently so that it creates creases in another spot. But yeah, leaving it and putting it out flat to rest is actually a really good idea because it will prevent that from happening. If you have wool inside your quilt, the batting won't create a crease, but you're still risking the creasing being on the top or the cotton parts of the quilt, because cotton does have memory. It will crease. Having it in a cool, dry place, not having it moist. That moist is bad on a quilt. You know, especially if one is like heirloom quality where you're going to try and keep it for, you know, centuries or whatever. Yeah, moist is really bad. Moist is not a good thing. Wash with when you're washing it, to wash it on cool using a gentle soap. Like we use oh, what's that soap? So Zero. We have Zero here in Canada. That's a real gentle, mild soap. Yeah, wash.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, just make sure, you know, if there's any stains on your quilt, you know, to treat them right away too. Don't let them sit up there, set up for like, you know, months on end before you treat it, right? I don't know if that's helpful or not, but you should be taking your quilts out regularly and examining them for damage, right?
Yep.
And it's okay to use your quilts. That's important.
Yeah. I have a quilt here that my grandmother made, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that it's over 150 years old because she made when she was a young woman, and my mother didn't get the quilts until my mom was in her 50s, and my grandmother was still living at the time, and now I'm 60 something, and so you know the math there. But the problem with that little quilt is that I've used it, I've slept on it, I've slept under it, and now when I touch it, anytime you touch it now, pieces of it just fall off of it. It's like powder. It's basically disintegrating before my eyes.
Okay, so that kind of
about it.
That kind of quilt needs repair. Do you have fabric that's you can use to repair it, or?
I don't think it's terrible.
But Katie,
it's that bad.
Yeah, but what they did is they used anything they had. So it could have been polyester that they used, some polyester.
I think that quilt's made from feed sacks.
Yeah, all that. Well, yeah, okay, that also put some aging on the quilt as well.
Yeah,
but
my grandparents raised 13 kids and they were poor. And so they used whatever they had access to.
Yeah.
And
but
so,
yeah, it's the the tightness of the weave, right? Like, I mean, that's part of it as well, why these quilts deteriorate. I had a student just before we went down to Tucson this past winter. She brought a quilt that she was just like beside her. She'd washed it and it disintegrated on her. Good chunks of it had just, there was almost 100 pieces that she had to replace because the fabric had ripped, because it was falling apart. So we made suggestions on, documenting the quilt prior to her repair and then documenting after she repaired, right? So that the quilt, because the quilt is obviously over 100 years old, it needed to be documented. And her appraisal, so we taught her how to do all the repairs and all this stuff, but I said it's more important you get this documented so that your repair work is going to be, if the quilt is over 100 years old and then you start repairing it without documenting it, the oldest fabric, the newest fabric in the quilt is how old the quilt is. So if you pick fabric that's like, you bought yesterday in the quilt store, well, all of a sudden now you've got, let's say 100 years, it gets wiped out because you've, patched it, right? So that's important that people document their quilt repairs, right? So, but yeah, it sounds like, yeah, you might need to be doing some repair. I actually repaired one of the quilts my mom had made because it was abused as a utility quilt. And it was a lot of hard work. It was very difficult to get all of that quilting done. I mean, I did succeed in finally quilting it, but it was a lot of work. And I was just not very happy at doing any more work on that quilt because it took more effort than it would have been simpler to start and make a new quilt than it was to repair an old.
And the quilt doesn't have batting inside of it. It has a blanket inside of it.
Yeah.
She used the used blanket for the center of it, which, I originally had 3 of her quilts, and 2 of them were pieced, but I don't know what happened to them. Things kind of got out of control for a little while there when my kid's father died. So things kind of, I don't know what happened to some stuff.
Yeah.
And, so I don't know what happened to those. That one I had for, drugging around with me forever. And then I took it out, I don't know, about 6 or 7 months ago. I was going to put it back on the bed. And I'm like, wait, I can't. I would pick it up and you could see powder falling off of it.
Oh, no.
So I knew it's basically dying. There's nothing I can do to stop it.
Yeah. And, sometimes when a quilt is beyond repair, yeah, you just have to, oh dear, okay, well, there's nothing you can do and kind of, just deal with the reality.
I know, and I talked to my cousin, which this whole thing's this is interesting about my grandmother. I talked to my cousin, and all of that part of that family stayed where my grandparents lived at in Jasper, Alabama, so they're still around there. And
Yeah.
I asked Doris Ann, I said, do you have any of grandma's quilts? She said she was never given one. So how did my mom end up with 3 of them? But her mom, or her daddy actually, because that would have been my mom's brother, Levi, I don't know why he didn't have any of them. And I thought it was kind of odd that, my cousins don't have any quilts from grandma, but I did.
Well, sometimes, what is that expression? Quilt worthy. I think it's Angela Walters that said quilt worthy. There's people.
I wish I'd have been more knowledgeable about what, when you're given something, you're not necessarily, or from my perspective, no one in my family ever told me, oh, take care of that quilt.
Yes.
And I was told, it's been used, you use it, sleep on it, sleep under it, whatever.
Yeah.
You're told how to take care of it or anything else. The only thing my mother did say is she said, when you wash it, you make sure you wash it on cold and a gentle cycle, and don't stick any kind of you know, fabric brighteners or anything else in it, and that's what she said about, and that was about all the extent of information she gave me about how to take care of it. And my mom never made quilts, which is the other thing. She made clothes, but she just didn't make quilts.
Yeah, well, actually, quilts are just a lovely, lovely gift,
Yeah.
But but the thing though too is like I have given away gifts to people, quilts to people, and when you go to their house, you see them as dog bed,
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing you can do about it. You gave the quilt away, right? So.
Well, my thing is if your dog's sleeping on a quilt I made, I don't care. You give it as a gift. It's up to them what they do with it.
Yeah.
And if they want to let their dog lay on it, that's fine. Now, throwing it outside in the yard for the dog to lay on, that would gripe me. You know what I mean? That would tick me off. But
yeah, it would.
But if a dog is laying on it on the sofa, who am I to say anything about it?
Yeah, well, it's like me trying to keep a cat off a quilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Not our cat, anyways.
Now my big dog, he doesn't get on the furniture, but the little one does. So I'm gonna have dog hair on stuff. If I don't want her on it, I just don't put it on our bed.
Yeah. Okay, what am I doing here?
Okay, so here's my next question. I've been waiting on. Let me see here. Let me go look at the channel first.
Okay.
So far no questions. So we'll ask another one.
Okay.
What advice would you give a beginner quilter?
What advice?
Yeah.
Try new things. Don't be afraid to try new things. Be patient with yourself. We tend to be our own worst critic, and we don't necessarily deserve the criticism that we give ourselves. As trying new things can be really hard to do sometimes, and we need to be trying, and we need to be patient with ourselves and give ourselves time to learn new skills. And sometimes we've picked up bad habits along the way, or habits from making clothes that don't necessarily translate well to making quilts, or and it's been it's kind of like, yeah, to be gentle on yourself. You're learning something really new, and it's these techniques have been around for a long time, and you're not going to pick everything up immediately, so that's kind of where I would start my little chat with them, I suppose. Let's see. Don't go out and buy only your favorite color. Because you buy the same color blue over and over and over again, right? And that's a bit, a rookie mistake, I guess. If your favorite color happens to be navy, well, when you look in that bin later and only find navy, don't be surprised, So that.
Okay. Tammy says, one of the kids I taught to quilt early on put her quilt in the dog's kennel. Oh, it took a lot to not say anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I know.
I've been thinking about taking all these browns and black fabric pieces that I got that I don't know what to do with, and making a quilted bed pad for the dogs to lay on.
Yeah, I do that with flannel, as I make little things that fit into the carrier, Albert's carrier or a cat's carrier, and I make I put flannel in batting and bind it so that it goes into the wash in case he spills his water dish or has an accident or something. Then at least you can take it and wash it, and he has a kennel pad, I guess.
Yeah.
You few of them kicking around, so he's not, you know, not trying to lay on cold, hard plastic, I guess.
That makes good sense to me. I always worry about, the biggest thing is I think that, yeah, I want to do this, but I'm also concerned that when I make it, the first thing one of them does is puke on it. Because sometimes that happens, and when a lot of time I don't let Coda sleep in my room, because all he's got to do is walk by my room and dog hair falls off him. You know, that's the germ. And I don't want him sleeping on the floor, because that just makes more dog hair. And sometimes you'll hear a sound coming from the foyer, and you're like, uh-oh, somebody's puking.
Yeah.
It never fails. You put fresh sheets down on the floor over the top of their little pad that I have on the floor, and someone got to go and puke on it.
Yep. Well, that's their job, you know. Oh, we've just washed the floor. Yeah, so let's have a major accident. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Robin, and thank you, everybody. Yeah, please do like the video. Vicky wants to know, what do you think of batiks?
Oh, love them. Love them.
I'm glad
You
to hear.
know, I have a friend, she makes these beautiful applique batik quilts, and they're all batik, the back's batik, the front's batik, and she does it by applique. And her thread, she uses silk thread, and what a game changer that is. Her stitches, because she's using a smaller needle as well for applique, her stitches are really tiny, lovely, and it just glides through the batik because she's using the right size thread and the right size needle. A lot of people find they don't even want to hand sew batik because it's difficult, right? Because it's a lot, the weave, there's a lot higher thread count in a batik than there is regular good quality cotton that you get from a quilt store. So, you know, but you should see some of those quilts are just amazing what she does. And like batiks too, you get such vibrant colors from them too, you know, or mixes of colors. You
The
know,
other thing about batiks is the more you work with it, you know, while you're cutting it, while you're pressing it, you're cutting it, you're sewing it, you're back to pressing it again, sewing more, pressing. To me, it softens over time. So I'm not too bothered by any of the whatever it is that people claim is makes it hard to sew with.
Are you talking about the wax that they have on batiks?
You can feel stiffness in the fabric, and you know there's still some wax left in it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can actually smell it, because I keep my batiks in plastic totes. Some of it, not all of it. Mostly my fat quarters are in totes. And when you crack the lid, you can smell it. But I've noticed over time, though, that I'm not smelling the wax on it like I used to smell it. So I think things have changed over time with that also.
Yeah, there are some batiks that, like some African batiks that are still very much, you crinkle the fabric in your hand, like, you know, like this, and chunks of wax are falling off.
No, I
Or,
haven't
you
seen.
know,
Wow.
yeah, but I mean, a lot of the batiks that are coming from, you know, Polynesia, or, you know, that those batiks are really fine, you know, pieces of cotton, right, with a really high thread count, right? So yeah, they're not they don't feel waxy. It's because they're high thread count, they might feel a little more silky, right? But yeah, they're not waxy.
Okay. Joy T says, sorry, but I get upset that my sister-in-law let her two large dogs lay on a quilt. Took my time, money, and love making that quilt for her after my brother died. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it's upsetting. We're not saying it's not upsetting. We're saying once you give it away, there's not much you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
if they're, whatever makes them happy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes, it is unfortunate those things happen and that people don't understand, that you've spent a lot of time and effort and energy putting that quilt together for them, but it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about it. Oh my.
You don't want to tell somebody don't use it, for whatever. Okay, next question is, what advice would you give to any quilter of any skill set?
What advice about what's the question they're asking?
If you were going to give advice to any quilter, what would it be? So we talked about giving advice to a beginner quilter. So now let's talk about any quilter. What kind of advice would you like to share with them?
If you don't use your scraps, pass them on to somebody who will. That's one of the things I get asked about. I also get asked about too how I organize my scraps and how I cut them up and what I cut them in, what sizes I cut them into. And I tried different methods over the years. I even tried the Bonnie Hunter method of cutting strips. I have yet to make a quilt out of 5-inch squares or 10-inch squares, so I didn't cut that. And I was very prolific about making scrap quilts for I don't know how long with all those cut pieces. And it was a blessing. And then I got all of a sudden, I would go to my box of scraps and I'd be uninspired to do anything with them because I had picked out all the fun, happy colors, and what was left was mud. It looked like muck, muck. It was just like nothing was there that inspired me. Now, would I do it again? Nah, not really. I do tend to make my favorite size of potato chip blocks, squares, like my rectangles. I cut for log cabin, the typical log cabins at 2.5 or like 2.5 square, 2.5 by 4.5, and then 2.5 by 6.5, that kind of thing. I do that because I tend to make a lot of log cabin kind of piecing. Because that's always a very quick quilt to put together, if you have your pieces all cut. But I tend to sort by color, and I tend to use my scraps by color. I'd actually got to the point where in my stash, I was able to put all the scraps and all the fat quarters and all the yardage into one bin because I have little bins here. Those bins that you get from those dressers, those plastic dressers that you get at Walmart or whatever. So I was able to get all my scraps and everything into one bin. Well, it's easier by color because then I'm looking through my scraps first. And if I can't find quite the right color in my scraps, then I can pull from my fat quarters or my yardage, right? So it was an easier way for me because that's the way my brain thinks. Let's play with colors first, then we start, working this way. And I also found too that I sort my crumbs and my strings by color.
Right.
And I found that far more efficient for me than to, just sit in a random box of scraps and go, okay, now what am I doing with this, right? So, but that, but I told people too, I said, if, sorting all this stuff by colors isn't your thing, sort by cool tones and warm tones, because all the cool tones play nice together and all the warm tones play nice together. So you don't have anything really clashing, but I mean, in reality, you could put whatever you want together. I mean, as long as you're using whatever scrap system you are using, and if you're using your scraps, who am I to tell you that you're doing it wrong? You do what's working for you, right? So Because I mean, everybody's brain thinks differently too, you know, about how they think about this or how they think about that, you know, so. So I guess that's my advice too, right? You know, like use your scraps if you don't not using them, pass them on. So
Do you have any other advice that you would like to share with everybody?
I take the time at the end of my day to pick up my tools.
Okay.
And put them back. I know that sounds so strange, but I don't know how many times a day during the day I lose a ruler. And I spend, you know, like that tapping, looking for the ruler under all the fabric and all the stuff. You know, I'm, you know, the hunt by feel kind of thing. And yeah, I take the time to put away stuff at the end of the day, you know, end of my sewing day, just to put my next day into perspective, right? So, and then I know where everything is too, right? Because some days I spend a lot of time looking for a ruler or a rotary cutter or, you know, something like that, right? So,
You're the first person that's mentioned about putting things away.
really?
Yeah, out of all this time of me doing the little interviews and asking similar questions or the same questions, not one has said anything like that. So
Oh, wow.
So, point for you.
Oh, yay me. But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's just you come into your sewing room and it's a disaster from, you know, from the door to the sewing machine. It's just one, you know, it's kind of like it's really disheartening to go in there and sew. But if you've got little spaces here and there that are clean-ish, and I do say clean-ish, not clean, but clean-ish, you know, at least now you've got a place to work from, you know.
Yep.
Like I know myself, I bury my ironing board all the time, and nothing is over there that needs to be pressed, right? So it's like, why do I do that? It's a flat surface, you know, that's why. So, but that's kind of, you know, that thinking, that way of, yeah, if I just put away just a little bit of it, I can usually get going the next day, right? And keep going the next day, and not lose hope that this is a you know, a fool's challenge. Oh, you're gonna sew in there today? You know, that kind of thing.
Joy says, I have to take Roscoe out. Thanks for the great interview with Brenda. I subscribe to your channel and look forward to watching it. Thumbs up, everybody. Thank you, Joy. See you on the next go around. Vicky says, what do you think about using freezer paper for paper piecing?
Oh, that's a debate. That's a debate. I don't know if you see, I have 2 rolls of freezer paper right here. There's some paper piecing projects that you can do with freezer paper, as long as they're not too complex, that I find freezer paper works better than you know, the old-fashioned way of sewing on paper. My
Yeah.
problem with paper piecing with freezer paper is, you know, I've been doing it this way for so long, I have to retrain my brain, you know, and I don't necessarily press between, you know, lines of stitching, right? Because I finger press and I thumb press, and I've got nails that can just flatten that, you know, that seam really quickly. And, you know, it's kind of a, you know, you just finger press the seam flat and you move on to the next seam. Well, when you're doing that, freezer paper method doesn't work well, right? So you have to apply some heat to the project every round, right? Otherwise, you end up with a, you know, a mess. So yeah, it's hard to say, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, is that it doesn't, it's not always going to work out to your advantage, I guess.
Yeah.
It is easier because you don't have as much waste paper then. You know, you're not wasting paper, and you can use that freezer paper quite a few times over before you have to scrape all the little, you know, fiber bits off of it, because, you know, things aren't sticking as well as they could, because it does take fibery bits and little bits of thread that acquire, you know, that eventually clog up your freezer paper foundation. method of quilting, you know, so, but yeah, there you can. And I was planning on doing a video of it just with something simple, like a simple block that, you know, people don't have to struggle with, you know, too much, but because freezer paper it is in some respects easier, but it also, I don't know, it depends how adaptable you are as to whether or not you can do this. Like I say, I have had nothing but problems with it, trying to remember not to sew on it, you know, but that's,
I learned about freezer paper when I was participating in the Sugary Dew Bermuda
yeah.
quilt along that happened in 2020, and I can't buy freezer paper here in Greenland.
Well, good luck finding it here in Canada too.
Yeah.
Because some of it.
So someone sent me a whole package of freezer paper so that I could learn how to do, learn how to use it. Okay.
Well, now you can use freezer paper for other things as well, right?
Well,
like you can glue it to itself,
yeah.
right? You know, you put the waxy side to the waxy side, and you all of a sudden now have paper hard enough for English paper piecing. You know, that a lot of people don't know that. And you can also use freezer paper for your applique. That's also a big godsend too, to do that with freezer paper. But yeah, I have 2 rolls of this stuff, and it's like, I can't tell you when's the last time I used it for like foundation paper piecing. Because that's what I'm using my freezer paper for. And I showed this on I think it was the Dresden case study, where you can make your own EPP out of this. And that, like, people were like, really? I thought you had to buy the forms. And no, you don't have to buy the forms. You can make your thing right the way you want it to.
Yep.
Like they say, it is, I mean, it does have its use and purpose, right? Like once it's ironed, like waxy side to waxy side, you can't peel this apart.
Yeah.
Like this is not coming apart anytime soon. And if it does, it rips. But yeah, like you can, you certainly use it for applique and all the rest of this stuff. But like I guess because I've been doing it so long the other way, I have a hard time thinking about even doing it by freezer paper method. You know what I'm saying? And you have to have the right kind of printer. If you have the wrong kind of printer, wow, is that an expensive cleanup?
Well,
Ask me how I know.
Something that Arena told us about, if you're going to print with freezer paper, take your iron and press the freezer paper to printer paper, and then run it through the printer, and then you can easily peel it back off again.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you just run the freezer paper through a laser printer,
you're gonna have a mess.
Yes, a very expensive cleanup.
Yeah.
Very expensive. Yeah, so if you have a laser printer, don't use freezer paper for anything in there.
Yep.
Yeah, not a good time.
Branka, and I hope I'm saying your name right, says hi to me and you. And then Becca says, I do a reset at the end of projects. I can't do it at the end of the day, but Mary's trying to convince me that system is better. That makes 2 of us, Becca. And then Branka says, nice to see you, Becca. And Becca says hi back to her or him. Okay. All right. So it is now been 2 hours and 20 minutes since we started. Anyone else have any questions that they would like to ask Brenda? And then I'm going to have Brenda show y'all all the blocks that she's gotten done. And then I'll show you the blocks I've worked on.
I got 1 done. That's it. 1.
1 done.
Crumb piecing takes me a little bit longer, but
okay. Okay. So I'm going to spotlight you and show them what you do have done.
I just got the one block done, guys. I've been spending too much time doing this instead
Oh,
of
it's
this. So
okay. No
it's got
problem.
the crocodile on it. That's the only block now that's big enough to say I've got one done. But I've got a bunch of other ones here. These are all the other ones I'm working on. So yeah, we could be here for days. And
Lori wants to know what time your channel lives, what day and time is your channel lives?
my
Oh, you
chat,
don't do live. Shh, Brenda doesn't do lives.
I don't do lives. No,
Her
well, I haven't. This is my
live.
first live.
Her first live, you guys, with us.
Yeah, the first live. I do 3 videos a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Fridays is Free Pattern Friday, and for some reason that's really exciting. Everybody loves Free Pattern Friday. Mondays and Wednesdays are free patterns too, but yeah, nobody really likes those as much. No, they like them, but they not as much as the Free Pattern Friday. So
And
we are doing Blue Mondays is Blue Monday is quilt along that we're going to start here right away, and we have filmed it. We haven't uploaded any of the videos, so they're probably going to start in June, where we do one blue block a month because I'm overrun with blue scraps and fabric that we're going to do, and we're going to make a chair at the end. I'm going to make a charity quilt. You guys can pick whatever color you want to work with. I'm picking blues and whites, so because I have lots. And I might do a Y seam Wednesday. Might start Y seam Wednesday right away here too, because a lot of people are like, they either understand how to make Y seams, they have no problem with it, or they're like, that's a really cool block, but how can I do that without making a Y seam? You know, they're trying to avoid them. And Y seams are very simple to do once you learn how to do them. And it's a matter of practicing those Y seams. And once you practice enough of them, you can make some absolutely outstanding blocks. Beautiful blocks.
Vicky wants to know, what do you think about using a cry-cut machine for cutting out fabric?
I'd I have just recently purchased an AccuQuilt cutter. I don't know anything about the cutter machine she's talking about, and I got mine secondhand from a friend who is downsizing her quilting room, her sewing
Maybe I'm
and
pronouncing
quilting.
that wrong. Cricket. Maybe that's how it's like.
Cricket,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe I said it
I
wrong.
don't know anything about those cricket cutters. I hardly know anything about the AccuQuilt cutter, but I have one now and I have a few dies. And I was really impressed how fast I was able to cut through scrap fabric with it. I was like, wow. I went through a stack that high in a couple of hours one night. And I didn't know what I was doing.
So Debbie says, I will take any blue scraps that you want to rehome.
Where are you, Debbie?
And then Becca says, Brenda, I've got my hands on a Singer 301. She's being refurbished and repainted, and I'm super excited to get her home and put her through her pieces.
Becca, I'm gonna tell you something. All you have to do is, okay, once you get her up and running and paint it or whatever you want to do, oil her every night in the oil drops that they talk about. That's important. Get the dust sucked out of her once a month, right? With either a vacuum or some kind of system that you have, but follow the manual that they have on a 301A, and they have them online. And then once a year, take them to get greased to the sewing machine spa, because there's inside parts that have to be greased and packed with grease, and you will never have a problem with them. Guaranteed. Like I say, this one, we've never had a problem. The only time we had a problem is when it's at my sister Faye's house and her kids kept playing with the dials. But I mean, and then once we got that corrected, it was like, yeah, I don't have a problem with her ever. And she purrs along, and it's just lovely. And this one here is from the 50s. So we're talking a 70-year-old machine. So that's all you have to do. Oil them every night, clean them, keep them clean inside. I change in the bobbin area. Every time I change a bobbin, I have a lint brush. Basically, I have a makeup brush that's never been used for makeup. And I clean out the lint right? I just pop out the lint and I put my new bobbin in. I just do a quick wipe. That's something that's not in the manual, but that's what I do just to keep her a little bit cleaner. I hope that helps. You're gonna love her. You're gonna love yours.
Okay, so Branka, my lives are normally Thursdays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Greenland time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is out of the ordinary. Some of these lives I've been doing recently are because that's the only way I could schedule with my guest. So like on a weird night. Okay, Vicky says, no, Becca said, I use the Cricut to cut fabric. You can only do one layer at a time. And then she says to Vicky again, if the pattern writer makes an SVG or cutting file, it could be pretty useful. Sarah says, I love my 301. It was painted teal. Becca says, Bella, my 301 will be painted red. Becca, I know just one layer at a time, but instead of hand cutting out hexes, I can cut out 9 hexes at a time. And then Becca says, Mom loves hexes and I like basting them. I was interested in a scan and cut to fussy cut. And, hi, Myra, how are you? She says, hi, girls. This question is for both of you. How much time do you estimate that you sew each day? What's your answer?
Oh, Lord. You know what? That depends on the day. And that's really true. It depends on the day. There's some days I'm in here early and I'm sewing until lunchtime, and then I take a quick break and have lunch, then come back in here and I sew until supper. And then after supper, I'll hand sew or hand quilt. When I'm on a good day, I have fibromyalgia, so some days are not good. So some days I only get in here in the afternoon. And then by the time the afternoon is done, I'm not sewing anything. So, you know, it's kind of one of those hit or miss kind of things. But yeah, I love it. I just find it very I find it very calming. It's very fulfilling to make something and to see it come together, and you know, all of this. You know I made one block today, right? But I mean, there's days where all of a sudden I'll make like, 50 or 60 of these blocks. So it's a process.
How long do I sew? Well, some days I might sew from the time I get up until 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, I wish.
It doesn't happen every day of the week though. Right now I'm in a funk, so my hours of sewing has been decreased a little bit, and I go through I go through this funk thing every so often, and when it happens, I deal with it the best I know how to deal with it. So
Yep.
On nights when I'm doing like lives and I'm sewing, after I stop sewing, stop the live. A lot of times I'll sew for another 2 or 3 hours. But I do take a couple days a week and I don't do anything. I just like veg.
Yeah. I do the sew date once a month, where I'm from 9 in the morning till 5 at night, Mountain Standard Time. And I get lots done in those days, and I am making a commitment to the viewers that are coming, that I'm going to be there and we're going to have fun and I'm going to get lots of. I'm always amazed how much I get done. Always amazed how much I get done. Because, everybody's chatting and everybody kind of, you call people out that are kind of quiet and, and sitting back and not saying anything. Hey, what you working on? And then they start, the a little show and tell thing, and you get them talking, and you get all of a sudden now everybody's talking with them, right? Or, then you get the next one out that's sitting back and not, just to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk, right? So meanwhile, while they're talking, I'm so
Hi, Sissy. Where you been? I haven't seen you in a while. Vicky says, Becca, I am trying to learn about digitizing on the Cricut. Okay, let me show you what I was doing while I was asking so many questions.
She's probably got a lot more stuff than I'm going to.
No, you know what I'm trying to do, Brenda? I am trying really hard to learn how to talk and sew at the same time and answer questions at the same time. And us, because I talk, we all know I talk too much. We all know that. But the sewing has been a lot less. So I'm concentrating on trying to make sure I keep my sewing going on. So today I actually got a few done. So here's the first one.
Oh, nice.
These are all batiks, by the way. This is the second one.
Very nice, yeah.
Third one.
Wow.
Fourth one.
You know, I think I have that orange or gold or whatever that one is.
This
That
one
one
right
you,
here.
yeah, the one you got your finger on. Yeah, that's cute.
This one
Oh, nice.
and this one. And I didn't even make a dent in my scraps yet.
You have to sew faster.
Yeah, become like Speedy.
You'd be surprised how fast you can sew on a 301A, by the way. Yeah.
You know, last time I was in Denmark, I didn't have enough time to go mosey around and see if I could find an antique singer, just, you know, buy one. But I haven't had time to do that. Every time we come through Denmark lately, it's like, come in, turn around and leave real fast.
Now, one of the things somebody told me, and I don't know if this is true or not, the fastest sewing machines are like the Jukies and then the 301As. And I don't know if they're like the 301As are number 2 on the fastest ones, you know, stitches per minute.
My Janome will do 1,200 stitches a minute. I just don't run it at that high speed.
Yeah, like, I don't know if that's true or not, but they were saying a 301A can keep up to a Juki in speed. And I'm like, probably.
I just think the Juki is too loud for my taste. I would have to wear earplugs. Okay. Sherry, hello, Sherry. You're not late. She said she'd watch on the rerun. Myra, what are you doing? She's working in North Dakota. Ah, I hope you're doing okay and enjoying your visit up there. Cherry, I'm not sure what is these blocks from your sticks you're collecting? Sticks? I don't know what that, batiks. Yeah. Nope, these are from my scrap batiks. They're not from the actual ones I'm saving for this project I plan on making. See, they all know about my I have a dream that when I have 100 batik colors, I'm going to make 100 color quilt out of them.
Oh, wow.
I just don't have a pattern in mind yet, but I have the visual of how I want it to look in my brain, though.
Well, sometimes that's all you need is the vision, right?
Yeah. It's just a matter of how I'm going to regurgitate this information.
Oh, yeah, there's that too. Yeah, sometimes that comes tough too.
Yeah, it's just when I think I will know when it's time. I'll know when I'm ready. You know. Vicky says, Cherry, I love batiks. Vicky, you're not the only one. Yeah. And Sarah says, I have a 301 and the Juki is fast. Becca says, from what I heard, the 301 does 1,600 stitches a minute. The Juki does 1,500. Really? Wow.
Really?
Myra says it's chilly and raining in North Dakota.
So that would make the 301A faster than the Juki.
What's a 308 or 301? I mean.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Very different. That was not what I was expecting, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, I like my 301A. So it's just, you know, people were my husband and I actually purchased yet another one when we were down in Tucson, and I was very happy. It came with the case, like the stand that they came in, and wow, I was really impressed. And beautiful mint condition. But oh,
Sarah says my featherweight still has the perfect stitch.
your featherweight has a what?
Sarah says her featherweight still has the perfect stitch.
Yeah. Now there's a difference between a straight stitch machine making a perfect straight stitch, because that's the only thing it does is make a straight stitch. Whereas the modern machines will, it's a zigzag machine that will make a straight stitch, but that stitch is just a little tilted, right?
Oh,
That's what, and that messes people up on their 1/4 inch too, right? Because if you're doing, you know, a quilt, let's say a quilt top, you've pieced a whole bunch of stuff on a featherweight or a 301A or another straight stitch machine, what happens? That stitch is like that. And then you take it and you put it on your Husqvarna and the stitch is like this all of a sudden.
wow.
That turn of cloth is now much larger because the stitch is bigger, right? So that creates problems, right? Because it's your 1/4 inch seam is going to be a little bit larger.
Okay.
So that's kind of, people don't think about, because we're only talking like a thread or two. Like, but when you're talking like a thread or two and you're doing, let's say, small intense piecing, that thread or two, you need that thread or two to make your block the right size. And when you're doing that very small intense piecing over a large quilt, it can make a huge difference. We're talking like inches over like a large, like say a queen size quilt, right? So
Andrea says I could sew faster than I do, but when I get to a certain speed, my machine starts walking and bouncing across the table. You need a mat underneath your machine.
yep.
Becca says the difference between a 301 and the 301A is the year of manufacture and location. Robin
Yes.
says the 301 or Juki, which one is quiet? That would matter the most to me. Becca says both are made in the US. Jukis are made in Japan, aren't they? I didn't think that was an American made thing. Andrea, well, Sherry says, Andrea, I can see that happening. And then Becca says, I think there's a cosmetic difference between the 301 and the 301A. Susie K says, that's why I prefer to piece with my featherweight. And Vicky says, I use the Husqvarna, and I bet I said that wrong, which I have had for 12 years and I love it.
The 301 and the 301A, yes, basically it's the location. The 301A is Kentucky, was made in Kentucky, I believe. I could be wrong. Just it was made in one state and the other one was made in a different state. There is long beds and there's short beds. The short bed, that little thing that flips up, is only like 3 inches, where the long bed it's got much longer, like a much longer thing. Like it's like a 6-inch flip up or something. There's long beds and short beds on the 301A. Is that what you're talking about, Becca?
Wait for her to answer.
She's probably, what are you talking about? She's typing frantically.
Sarah says the 301A is made in Anderson, South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
So it's just called a 301. It's not a
Yeah,
brother.
301 and a 301A basically is the same machine. It's just one was one location, the other one was the other
Oh
location.
no, I think I'm not articulating. What is a 301? Are we talking about a Singer machine or a
Yeah,
brother
yes,
machine?
a Singer.
Oh, a Singer 301. Okay, gotcha. Because I'm
Yeah,
like,
they
what are
had 201s. They had 201s and they have 401s.
okay.
And you know, like but yeah, this was just a step up. Basically, the 301 is due to the featherweight. Because the bobbins and the bobbin holder are all the same.
Ah, okay. Okay, anyone else want to ask any more questions? I'm going to share Brenda's link one more time, and then I think we're going to call it. Unless someone has a question they want to ask. Hey, Myra, give me a yell when you have a chance later. I was told that a 301 is the big sister to the featherweight. And
Yeah.
Vicky said hello to Sean. We all are saying hi to Sean, the guy who sews.
Yes. Hi, Sean.
Terry says, I have featherweights and a 301. Michelle the Quilter says, hi, Sean. Good day, Vicky. Coming from Sean. Anyone else have any questions for Brenda? Come on, you guys. Because I've asked all my questions.
Yeah, it took us how long? Like over a month to even figure out what date we wanted to do this.
I think you and I had been hawing around since November.
I know.
But I'm not upset about my channel's new and learning the ropes of when to learning. One of the things to learn is how to get people on your books. And
Yes.
there's times in the year I'm noticing is painfully hard to do. And one of them is like starting in October, I can forget it if I haven't already booked it.
Yeah.
And the other one is May, the back end of May and the first part of June seems to be the other painful position on the calendar.
One of the things I've noticed when we're down in Tucson, my husband and I live a very different lifestyle, right?
Mhm.
And it's very busy and it's almost to the point of like you have to come home for like a month to rest up because, like you've survived, being in Tucson for 5 months. But I mean, it's a very busy, very, like lots of things going on. And it's really hard to schedule stuff, right? I just, like my friend and I were talking about it. She says, like, why are you so busy? I said, I'm busy because I want to be busy, right? But I mean, I need sometimes I need to just take days off or whatever. But we started to try to pin down a date just as we were getting ready to leave for Tucson, and that no, we're not going to be home. We're going to be home beginning of May. Let's not do anything until after we get home. So that kind of delayed us again. So. But I'm glad we had this time together. I was looking forward to it so much.
I've been too. I'm so
I
excited.
did get sunburnt on the camping trip with the grandkids this past weekend. So yes. Yay.
In case you're wondering what this noise is, it's the Dotson running back and forth like she just got on drugs or something. That's what all that racket is you hear. She's running back and forth. Okay, Andrea wanted to know if you were back home or no. Stop. Or you still in the States?
I'm back home in Canada. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So before I forget, Thursday was supposed to be with Stephanie of Memoirs of a Long Arm, but something came up, so we have postponed it to June. So I'm not sure who's going to sew with me Thursday. I might be by myself. We'll see. So anyway, there's that. So my usual time is 7 p.m. Greenland time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for my Thursday and Saturday sew. So if I figure out a new person to put on there, I'll let y'all know ahead of time on my community tab. Also, I wanted to have a little short discussion with all of y'all about notifications. I noticed that several people said they didn't get notifications when a live went up. And I was doing some research on inside of my YouTube, but I was also doing some research other places. Make sure that when you're subscribed to one of our channels, that up there where that place where you click to subscribe, you need to click on all notifications. Click on that, and that will totally put all of it on. So if you're not sure whether you've done that, go look at wherever you're subscribed at or who you're subscribed to and see if you just clicked the regular notification bell or if you clicked all notifications. And if you haven't clicked all notifications, that's what you should do. And those notifications, believe it or not, is part of our analytics. We get credit for whoever clicks on that notification button. So that helps our numbers as well. In fact, the three biggest things that helps our channels to grow is notifications, viewership, and watch hours. All three. So the stats are divided into two things. You've got how many hours someone watches your video. So like this video was 2.5 hours, and it'll show how many people will watch however long of that video. So if they watch a half hour of the video, multiply times 100, that's like 300 hours. or 30. Yeah. Anyway, but those two are like divided, and views are like when you just look at you click on it just to have a peek at it. You also get credit for that. So yeah. Robin says, I did, Katie, and had to do it again. I don't know how it was changed, but I didn't do it. I don't know either, Robin, but there's been a lot of it lately going on. And I did check on some of my subscriptions because I usually get notifications in my email from some. And I noticed I wasn't getting them. And when I went and looked, it looked like I hadn't even clicked on it. And then I'm like, well, maybe it's because I didn't click on all notifications. So I've started going back through all my subscribing on all the channels I follow, and I'm trying to make sure that I've captured that all notifications button.
Katie, did they not have YouTube not have a glitch a month ago, and there was a bunch of things that got taken out, or there was like a hiccup, and everybody all of a sudden lost all their notifications, and like I don't know.
Some people got unsubscribed. Now YouTube claims they don't unsubscribe people, but how else would people get unsubscribed if they're not doing it? You know, so I don't know. It could be some kind of glitch with YouTube, but that would be the reason why you wouldn't get a notification, is for whatever reason. It just also, my notifications that I get, sometimes I see them on my YouTube itself, up where it says notifications, but I always get an email. That's why I have like 5,000 emails sitting in my Gmail account that came from YouTube that I didn't even realize was there until I clicked on the little link or the little folder that says social media. And when you open it, oh my God, there's all this YouTube there. That was why I wasn't seeing it, because Gmail automatically throws it into social media folder. And if you're not aware they're doing that, then you don't know. You're thinking, I don't get no notifications. Actually, you have been to Gmail if you have a Gmail account. And so check if you're using a Gmail account, go and check and see if all those notifications are getting dumped into the social media folder, and you might discover you have thousands of them because of that. So yeah, there's that. Okay, so thank you, Brenda, for coming to my live today, and we should try sewing again together whenever you have a free time to do it. We should try sewing together. I don't know, let's do a project or something.
Yeah, we could definitely do some stuff. I've got a couple of things I wouldn't mind doing. Yeah, it would be fun. I had fun today. This is my first live. I was very excited.
Well, I'm the first one to have you on a live. Yay!
Yay!
Not so bad. So thank you for coming. Thank you everyone for coming to the live tonight. I appreciate it so much, and thank you so much for all the support that you give my channel. It means so very much to me. Just make sure that when you're out and about, make sure you live, laugh, love, dream, and create something. See everybody later. Good night. Don't hang up. Let me hang up the channel first.
Okay. Yeah.
All righty. Let's end this.